Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Literary Lutheran Reads the Book of Concord. Today we are continuing with the reading and studying of the Fourth Commandment. Here we go. Therefore, you should be heartily glad and thank God that He has chosen you and made you worthy to do a work so precious and pleasing to Him. Only note this, although this work is regarded as the most humble and despised, consider it great and precious. Do this not because of the worthiness of parents, but because this work is included in and controlled by the jewel and sanctuary, namely the word and commandment of God. Oh, what a high price all Carthusians, monks, and nuns would pay if in all their religious activities they could bring into God's presence a single work done by virtue of His commandment, and if they were able to say with a joyful heart before His face, "Now I know that this work is well-pleasing to you." Where will these poor, wretched persons hide when in the sight of God and all the world they shall blush with a shame before a young child who has lived according to this commandment? Matthew chapter 18, verses 1 to 4. Will they not have to confess that with their whole life that they are not worthy to give that child a drink of water? Mark chapter 9, verse 41. It serves them right. Because of their devilish perversion in treating God's commandment underfoot, they must vainly torment themselves with works of their own making, and in addition have scorn and loss for their reward. Should not the heart then leap and melt for joy when going to work and doing what is commanded, saying, "Look, this is better than all the holiness of the Carthusians, even though they kill themselves fasting and praying upon their knees without ceasing"? For here you have a sure text and a divine testimony that God has commanded this. But concerning the holiness of the Carthusians, He did not command a word. This is the plight and miserable blindness of the world. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. No one believes these things. The devil has deceived us to such an extent with false holiness and the glamour of our own works. I would be very glad, I say it again, if people would open their eyes and ears and take this to heart, lest someday we should again be led astray from God's pure word. Psalm 12, verse 16, to the devil's lying vanities. Psalm 31, verse 6. If people would take this to heart, all would be well, for parents would have more joy, love, friendship, and unity in their houses. The children could captivate their parents' hearts. On the other hand, when children are stubborn and will not do what they ought until a rod is laid upon their back, Proverbs 22, verse 15, and Proverbs 26, verse 3, they anger both God and their parents. In this way, they deprive themselves of this treasure and joy of conscience, and they lay up for themselves only misfortune. As everyone complains, the course of the world now is such that both young and old completely lack restraint and are beyond control. They have no reverence or sense of humor. They do nothing unless they are driven to it by blows, and they do what wrong and slander they can behind each other's back. Therefore God also punishes them so that they sink into all kinds of filth and misery. As a rule, the parents too are themselves stupid and ignorant. One fool trains another. As the foolish parents have lived, so their children after them. This now, I should say, should be the first and most important consideration that urges us to keep this commandment. Because of this, even if we had no father and mother, we should wish that God would set up wood and stone before us, so that we might call them father and mother. Since He has given us living parents, how much more should we rejoice to them and show them honor and obedience? For we know it is so highly pleasing to the divine majesty and to all angels, and it harasses all devils. Besides, this is the highest work we can do, after the divine worship included in the previous commandments. Giving to the poor and every other good work toward our neighbor is not equal to this, for God has assigned parenthood the highest place. Yes, He has set it up in His own place upon the earth. God's will and pleasure ought to be enough reason and incentive for us to do what we can with good will and pleasure. Besides this, it is our duty before the world to be grateful for benefits and every good that we have from our parents. But here again the devil rules in the world, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, so that when children forget their parents, We all forget God, and no one considers how God nourishes, protects, and defends us, and how he bestows so much good on body and soul. Psalm 23. This is especially true when an evil time comes. We grow angry and grumble with impatience, and all the good that we have received throughout our life is wiped out of our memory. Psalm 78, verses 17 to 31. We act the same way toward our parents, and there is no child that understands and considers what the parents have endured while nourishing and fostering him, unless the Holy Spirit grants him this grace. God knows very well this perverseness of the world. Therefore, he admonishes and urges by commandments that everyone consider what his parents have done for him. Each child will discover that he has from them a body and life. He has been fed and reared when otherwise he would have perished 100 times in his own filth. Therefore, this is a true and good saying of old and wise people. To God, to parents, and to teachers, we can never offer enough thanks and compensation. The person who thinks about and considers this will give all honor to his parents without force, and bear them up on his hands as those through whom God has done him all good. Psalm 91, verse 12. Over and above all this, another great reason that should move us to obey this commandment is that God attaches to it a temporal promise, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. From this you can see for yourself how serious God is about this commandment. He not only declares that it is well-pleasing to him, and that he has joy and delight in it, but he also declares that it shall prosper us and promote our highest good, so that we may have a pleasant and agreeable life, furnished with every good thing. Therefore, St. Paul also greatly emphasizes the same promise and rejoices in it when he says that this is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 2 to 3. Although the rest of the commandments have promises in them, none is so plainly and clearly stated. Thank you for joining me for today's reading from the Literary Lutheran Reads the Book of Concord, as we have continued to study the fourth commandment. This is the Literary Lutheran wishing you a blessed day.